All right, speaking of pass catchers, let's move to 2024. This from Zaheem. Mailbag question. With our top 3 options at tight end being so phenomenal, Oregon fans aren't very concerned this offseason about who our 4th tight end will be on the depth chart. So if you had to guess, who will be Oregon's 4th tight end this upcoming season? DeCorian Moore. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So there are a couple different options for Oregon here. And I think the most likely option that I've heard is Travis Bashir, or Brashear with an R after the B. Big guy. Did not see the field, redshirted in 2023 as a freshman. Walk on, not someone you have super high expectations for. I think the tight end room is in an utterly fantastic place. I really do. Because you've got Terrance Ferguson, and T-Ferg is going to play on Sundays. I am fully convinced of that. I have been perhaps the biggest proponent of T-Ferg and his abilities since I started hosting this show. Going into 2022, I felt like he'd have a big year. Had his best year yet. Season ago, first team All Pac-12. I was frankly a little surprised in the best way. I mean, there are a lot of great ways to surprise people, but that is one of them. I was a little surprised he came back because for someone who, has that size, has not really battled injuries in his career, has NFL prospects, and had a first-team all-conference caliber season, I don't know how often those guys come back, but it's a testament to the culture that Dan Lanning and the Oregon coaching staff have got, and also what those guys believe is possible this season. Guys like Jeff Bossa and Jordan Birch and Terrance Ferguson and a Johnny Cornelius, like they had the option to go to the NFL and they probably would have been drafted or at the very least been an undrafted free agent, but they wanted to come back to Oregon. I think to simultaneously improve their draft stock and compete for a national championship. I think they understand what can be this season if everything falls into place. And DeCorian Moore doesn't, impact 2024, but it speaks to just the overall momentum of the program right now. It's really, really high. So T-Ferg coming back, I think gives you as solid of an option as you're going to have at tight end. I mean, he's proven himself capable in pass protection, in run blocking. He's an elite pass catcher, good yards after the catch guy. He's really transformed his body to be that prototypical athletic tight end that can still block. And then behind him, you got Patrick Herbert. And for Patrick Herbert, he's had a little bit of an injury-riddled career, but last 2 years has really showcased why he was a blue-chip recruit coming out of high school. And it took him a while to make an impact, but as far as backup tight ends go, really solid. And if T-Ferg were to go down, yeah, there'd be a drop-off. It wouldn't be substantial. I think you'd lose a little bit of the route running that T-Ferg has. I think he's got, better hands and contested catch capabilities. Like he's certainly a lot more proven in that realm. But overall, losing a tight end, like it doesn't move a number in Las Vegas. Colin Cowherd used to say all the time, well, if Gronkowski's out, Vegas isn't moving the line, but for maybe half a point, if that. And he's not wrong that Vegas does not think tight ends are a highly impactful position. You can't go way down the depth chart. Like if Travis Brashear has to play a meaningful role on the team this season, that is a problem because that means you're having multiple injuries because you got 3 tight ends you feel good about. Those 2, and then Kenyon Sadiq, another guy who I've been a massive, massive fan of since Oregon got him in the class of 2023. Just a unique athlete. I think he's going to play a significantly more impactful role in the offense this year compared to what he had a season ago. But the other thing is, if the season plays out the way I think it will, you could have Kenyon Sadiq being the number 2 tight end at the end of the year. Not because Patrick Herbert did anything wrong or isn't capable, but because Sadiq's athletic profile is just a lot higher. Now, what this will come down to is how Sadiq is able to, prove himself serviceable and capable as a blocker. Because Patrick Herbert is not elite in that sense, but he's certainly more experienced. He's had more years in the weight room, and Sadiq has transformed his body to gain about 20 pounds or so this offseason. And I think is capable, more than capable, of being a good blocker, and that's a really, really important part of playing that tight end spot. But for Sadiq, his playmaking ability is just so high. And frankly, you could have packages where they're on the field at the same time. Oregon had that last year. Casey Kelly and T. Ferg and Kenyon Sadiq were all on the field sometimes. Like 13 personnel is something Oregon can run in the red zone. And I think with Sadiq, you can get really, really clever with the play calls because, like, just thinking out loud, for instance, if you want to show, hey, here's a heavy say, we're shotgun, we're 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, and you bunch them on the end of the line of scrimmage. I'm not an offensive coordinator, but I've watched football every now and then. You can flex Sadiq out, throw him a jump ball in the corner of the end zone, or have him, take a one-on-one with a corner. And frankly, T. Ferg can do that too. I mean, that jump ball to T. Ferg against Arizona State last year was a touchdown, except the official botched the call. Oh, so stupid. Just called the dumbest offensive pass interference I have ever seen. I have seen far, far greater things not called offensive pass interference than that. But those two guys, I think in that situation, like that's not the sort of ball or play that you would design for Patrick Herbert. It is one that you can call for either T. Ferg or Sadiq, depending on what his progression has been like. But, both guys are former wide receivers. T. Ferg played some wide receiver in high school, but I think the depth chart there, going 3 deep with those guys, is really, really good. Now, Brashear is really big. He could be, a little bit more of a run blocker. I don't know if he's the most nimble running with the ball in his hands, but he's not the automatic 4th tight end on the roster. You have to remember that A.J. Pugliano is an incoming true freshman, and Roger Saliapaga, who was a wide receiver in high school, also an incoming true freshman. Now, Saliapaga might need a year to kind of get his body into tight end shape because he's a little bit more of a wide receiver frame. He's listed at 6'4", 220. So that's about what Kenyon Sadiq played at last year. And, he's out of Orem, Utah, listed as a wide receiver from there. And, has an interesting athletic profile, kind of similar to what Sadiq brings to the table. And Pugliano, also 6'3.5", 220, but, played more of that traditional tight end spot. So either one of them could be that guy that steps up if one of those players were to go down with an injury. Because I think you saw with Oregon last year, you need to have 3 tight ends. Like, it sounds ridiculous to be discussing, well, what's Oregon going to do, for the 4th tight end spot on the roster? Like, well, they use 3. They regularly did last year, and the tight ends are an important part of the offense. And, Will Stein talked in his offseason media availabilities about how they were, trying to get T. Ferg and Kenyon Sadiq more involved in the offense. And I think Oregon's got a lot of mouths to feed. It is definitely a challenge. But I think that if you look at where that room is in totality, it's in a good spot. Like, I have no concerns about, like, I think you can survive an injury to T. Ferg, or if Sadiq goes down, or if Herbert goes down. Having to go with either a walk-on in spot duty or a true freshman at the tight end spot, I don't think that's asking too much, because they probably wouldn't be required to do too much. But having 3 guys who could be a number 1 tight end and be at least serviceable, I think puts Oregon in a good position.